We are here with Marisol Mendez.
Ciao. Ciao, everyone.
In Italian.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Gabri.
I'm really happy too. And today we are going to speak about this book that it's really beautiful and exciting and full of colors, I have to say.
It is.
It is.
Certainly.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful project that I discovered also this time during a presentation in a festival, I think.
Yes. In Bologna, actually, back here in PH Museum in 2023. So that's when I met you and when you came across my project. And actually, Gabriel was the first person to buy a copy of my book.
Ah, really?
Yes.
I didn't remember that.
You were, and to me it was very amazing because back then I think someone introduced us, but you were not a friend. So it was very incredible to me that someone who was not super close to me or knew the whole story behind the book, wanted the book. I mean, this is how it happens, but to me it was very special. That's why I remember it.
Yeah, but of course it's true that we're supposed to, like, when you publish a book, you're supposed to sell the book of a lot of people that are not your friends. But I think, especially if it's your first book, the first time that you see someone that you don't know to buy your book, it's a special moment in some way.
Completely. And for me, MADRE, this project was actually first for so many things, like my first book, my first long-term, very personal project. So I'm very fond of it because although as anything in the world, it's not perfect, it's really a beautiful, when I see it now, it's a really beautiful reflection of all the things that I learned while I was doing it. And it made me fall more in love with photography and art in general. So yeah, I'm really fond of this work.
Where are you from?
I'm from Cochabamba, Bolivia. I was raised there. And then I studied in Buenos Aires. And then I did a master's in fashion photography in London. And it was after the master's in fashion photography that I really wanted to dedicate myself completely to the medium. I was very fascinated. And I really like fashion. I think that you will see that there is definitely my background comes through.
I was just writing right now this question. Do you think people can see this fashion past in your project or not?
For sure. Like actually, it's very interesting because I think that this project in particular was difficult, not for me. Like as a philosophy, I believe that like labeling or trying to be very specific about what things are is always a bit problematic. But somehow, to me, it was very interesting because MADRE has been classified as many things. Like some people say that my portraits are too fashion. Some people say that fashion people say that my portraits are too documentary.
Yeah, of course.
I myself, when I started doing this work, I didn't know that I could do a fine art project somehow. Like, again, my background was in fashion, which is another way of creating work. It is more fast-paced. It is more concentrated in maybe the plastic aspect of an image. Not that it doesn't have depth or like a concept behind it, but you're looking at different things. So I like that you said that my book was colorful, which it is, but actually the idea of making the project into a book was because I felt that I had a collection of images that were very somehow all over the place. As in, I had stage photography, documentary photography, black and white, color, analog, digital. So I thought that although back then I didn't know a lot about photo books, I thought that it was a format that would allow me to give some structure to the kind of free thinking that I had been doing during the production of the project. When I started, I will talk about this later, but the project started as a quite simple idea. I just wanted to make a collection of portraits. But then as I was making the project, it became more layered. And making the book also helped me understand how to situate these different layers, how to make the different images connect with one another and like tell this story. So I nowadays I say that I met a photographer that told me the most beautiful thing about my work, that was that she had never seen, when she saw my project, she had never seen so much freedom with someone making work. Yes, I thought that was the most beautiful, because where she saw freedom, I saw chaos. And I am by nature a very chaotic person, but this is something that I think more now than when I was doing it. The culture that I come from, the Bolivian culture, is very syncretic. Like nowadays, I say my book has to do with religion, specifically Catholicism. But nowadays, I say I think that the religion in Bolivia is syncretism, because everything in my culture is such a big mix, a mix of old, new, very traditional mythologies, pre-Columbian folklore. So it's such a mix that now I understand why I am a maximalist, and why I am so free when I create, because I come from a culture that in a very beautiful way mixes everything. And nowadays I can say this, but again, when I was making it, I wasn't as conscious. I was just very moved by what I wanted to say with the book.
And what is MADRE about?
MADRE, I think I think that I would say that MADRE is both a celebration of the diversity and dynamic nature of womanhood, specifically in Bolivia, but it is also a protest against the very reductive way in which women are represented, and it's also a protest against the very oppressed spaces that women are allowed. My society, unfortunately, to this day, holds traditions, has a more conservative way of thinking, and it upholds traditions more strongly than maybe other spaces. So I think it's both a celebration, but at the same time, MADRE is very dual in nature. It's always about these two things that coexist together. So MADRE is a celebration of all the beauty, the strength, the power of the women in Bolivia, but it's also showing you that there are many things that have to change for us to be as free and wonderful as we are.
Really good. We can also start to go a bit through the images if you want. And I knew that your mother helped you quite a lot during the development of this project.
Yes, I will. Well, this is a perfect image to start talking about my mother, because the first image in the book, and I knew this was actually the last image that I made for the book, but I knew from the start that I wanted when I was already thinking of the structure, I wanted the book to start with a cave, because a cave many times can be a metaphor for like the womb of a mother. But I like also the idea that I associate caves to Plato's allegory of the cave, and this idea of what is real and what is an illusion. And this is what I'm talking about in Madre, like what is a real woman and what is this illusion or this idea, this shadow that we are shown. And my mom is actually a philosopher, like she studied philosophy, she was a teacher. So I always credit both of my parents. Neither of them were artists, but both. My mom had a lot of artistic inclinations, and my dad was a very sensitive man. So they raised me and my sister to be very aware of like culture and to develop our creativity. So even from the start, my mom and my dad were very supportive of the direction that I wanted to take. I think that even to this day, worse in Bolivia, if you say you want to be an artist or want to do something in the creative field, it could lead parents to be very skeptical.
Yeah.
But my parents were always pushing me to do what I wanted. And my mom, I returned, Madre was also my return to Bolivia after spending like, I think 7 or 8 years abroad, first in Argentina and then in London. So it was actually a return to my motherland, but also a return to living with my mother, because since I was 18 years old, I had been away. And now I was finding her in this stage when we were both women. I still found her as a mother, but she was also, but I could also see her as another woman. And it all started when I went to my first session of photography. And the community, the artistic community, photographic community in Bolivia is amazing, it's growing, but back then I didn't have contacts or know anyone. And I was very unsure of my point of view. I didn't know where this was going, so I didn't feel like I could assemble a team or bring people together. But I still wanted the project to look really good. So for my first session, I actually invested in makeup, and I had someone do the makeup of my virgin that I will show you later in the photographs. But I asked for a natural makeup, and the person who did the makeup gave me a drag queen. So I was panicking and I was almost crying, and it was the day of the session, and my mom took control. She said, "Don't worry, we're gonna fix how she looks." She was supposed to drive me. I'm a very bad driver. She was supposed to drive me to the space and then just leave me. But she stayed with me to do the makeup. And later she said, like, "Why don't I stay? You have some changes of clothes. I could help you."
It's very nice.
Super nice. And this, so I always say my mom started as my chauffeur. I just wanted her to take me to the shoots. But even since that first beginning, my mom has so much. I think my mom is an artist, not one that works through it, but like she has this very artistic view. So her input was very good, and my madre started as accompanying me, but then she became everything. My mom would help me pick up the outfits. My mom became a great casting director. Actually, the photo that you are seeing right now.
Can I say something about the picture of before? Just one second, then we come back in that one. Was your mother here with you?
No. In the last picture, I actually went with my sister and my cousin to these caves. My mom... she's a very good, very fit, very good of state, but in Bolivia going to the caves is a little bit risky, so I didn't really want to take her. But
you know why?
Yes.
Because I see two people speaking in some way, the two shadows.
Yes.
It seems in the left, the one, the profile, and the other one listening to the first one. Uh-huh. And so I thought when you showed this picture speaking about your mother, I thought maybe she's going to tell that. Then, of course, you see it's rock. Yes.
But this is the magic, I think, of any art, that what is in the art is something that even I think eludes the maker. Like I think that that is the power of art, that it transcends even the person that makes it. I'm not saying my work is art specifically, but what is beautiful is that I will show you in later images, like what people have said to me about the images that I hadn't noticed, but they're there. And then their interpretation of an image is as valid as mine. And this is the kind of thinking that my mom helped me have. My mom is a very open person, very, very, as I was saying, very supportive, very intellectually curious. And as a matter of fact, I hope she pulls through. She was telling me that she's considering taking some like production classes in Buenos Aires because she really enjoyed making work with me. So these things like are wonderful because I was gonna tell you like this beautiful women that has become like one of the pictures that a lot of people gravitate towards in the project. She's my mom's. She goes to dance classes with my mom. She's a classmate. And my mom came and this to finish how my mom helps me. Like I remember my mom coming back from her dance class and she was like, I found your next subject. Like you should definitely photograph Negrita. Maria Elena is the woman in the picture. People call her Negrita. And she said, she has this long hair. She's so beautiful. And she showed me on her phone that she had actually made pictures of Maria Elena, like front profile. Like she like
it's
totally
it
professional.
was a proper casting.
Yes, proper
amazing
casting.
Really cool.
So yeah, my mom was very instrumental. Like, and again, my mom doesn't come from an artistic or photographic background, but even when I was editing and putting the images together, I would always show her. And I would always listen to what she was saying. I say the project is dedicated to my mom because actually it wouldn't have been the same project if my mom wasn't part of it.
But a lot of time, the photographers works alone, mainly. And of course, like it's like that. It's different from the cinema and from a lot of other, let's say, artistic job. But I think it's really beautiful when you find someone that can help you also in a collaborative project. It's amazing. I love to collaborate, for example, and in the past years I also met a lot of people or couple or group of people that collaborate to a project, and it's exciting. It's
the best because it was easier for me to have my mom collaborating because back then I wasn't so sure of my voice and not completely sure of what I was making. So having my mom there somehow felt very safe because she's my mom.
Yeah, of course.
So she wasn't going to judge my horrible idea.
It was perfect. You
exactly.
have the perfect guide for your...
Completely. And it was a thing, but by the end, it felt like a very professional company. Like, for example, my mom would come and whisper in my ear because she learned that she cannot take out my authority during the shoot.
Of course.
But she would come and whisper in my ear, now maybe try from this angle. So she was even directing by the end of it. But I absolutely loved it. This image that you see right now is from my first shoot. This is Vanessa. And as you can see, she has beautiful natural makeup that, and the way that she's wearing, she has actually it's like a poncho, but it was my mom's idea to put it on top of the head and then put the hat. And this is my mom, not only being creative on the spot, but also understanding that I was referencing the Catholic icons, Mary Magdalene and the Virgin Mary. So she knew that it was going to look more virginal if we had put the poncho in this way, the mantilla in this way. So again, like my mom was actually a big collaborator, and I completely agree with what you say. I think that when photographers can work on their own, but when you collaborate, it's and especially with people that understand you and your vision, it's magic because everyone brings something to the table, and the work becomes richer. So maybe this is a good moment to say how my portraits were structured from the framework of Catholicism. I grew up Catholic. Honestly, my parents were not strict Catholics at all, but my bigger sister was, like, she still goes like to the church. So she would take me, and actually I was very devoted. Like, now jokingly I say, like, I could be a cult victim, you know, like I'm very easily fall into these things. And I don't have, as a person with Catholic friends and everything, I don't have anything against faith. But the more that I learned and researched and deconstruct, like, the problematic thing to me about Catholicism specifically is that it perpetuates this Madonna whore complex, this idea that women are either or, which is very reductive, because basically what I'm saying with Madre is that womanhood is not only very diverse and like such a big spectrum, but also something very dynamic. So I think that it's very old to say like a woman, and it has these silly ideals like the virgin or the whore. You know, there is no in betweens.
No, of course.
You have like a very fertile woman, or you have someone who can who is like completely dry. I don't know, like it's always either or. And I think in anything, like I think we've learned that the world is not either or, it's actually everything in between. So I thought it was a very good framework to start with these extremes, to start with like this strict separation. And actually this is how I structure it as well. I'm showing first a woman as I think she is, like strong, powerful, all these things. And then the archetypes, the Virgin Mary and Mary Magdalene. And with this Mary Magdalene comes another element into play, which is, as I was saying before, I think that Bolivia is very eclectic, very syncretic. And in Bolivia, even if you're a very strict Catholic, our faith is interlaced with pre-Columbian folklore as well. So we, besides the like Mary Magdalene, we have all these other deities. This one in the picture is China Supai. She is she's a character from folkloric dance in Bolivia, where she depicts the lover of the devil, of the demon. So I thought, oh, it's very fascinating that we have this very seductive character, and so openly seductive, and not as a bad thing, you know, like in Catholicism, the devil doesn't have a girlfriend. So I thought it's funny that we have the girlfriend of the devil. And I thought, oh, she's very powerful because she's very aware of her sexuality and uses it.
And also the point of view of the camera, of course.
Oh.
She looked like bigger.
With
a lot of power. We watch her from...
Exactly.
From a lower perspective, and she seems tall and full of power.
Yes, and very and again, like there is not a lot of nudity in Madre, but to me the nudity was about this how women are very connected to nature, and how like we are the ones that made nudity a problem. You know, it's actually not problematic, but with women especially, many times nudity doesn't even have to be part of it. Like the sexuality of women has been used as like the object of desire of someone else. So to me, it was bringing back the power to us. You know, like I'm not a seductress for someone else. Like I am one because I am one.
And nudity, it's always a problem. Also, it's super hard to find nudity in male portrait, for example. There are really few. Also, think about the movies. Just in the last few years, we are starting to see some male nudity. But it's something quite new. And all the time that it happens, I think, good. Like, finally.
Me too. Like, well, being very open, like, not very long ago, I watched the movie Under the Silver Lake. Again, and I was watching it with a friend, and we were laughing because the guy is sort of a voyeur, so he's always looking through his binoculars to women's asses, and there is like his neighbor is always walking around without a bra. So you always have like this very fetishistic way of looking at women. And then he's nude, but we never see a frontal nudity.
No,
and I told my friend, where are the penises? I want to see more penises, you know, just even as a balancing and not even as a sexual thing. But if you have boobs as a prop, why can't I have a penis as a prop, you know? And not as a vengeful thing, but as a thing where, like, let's make more equilibrium, you know? Like, if we more penises.
I agree.
And here is, like, this was my logic. And I'm at the beginning of the book, the introduction, I'm presenting the elements. Women, Mary Magdalene, my reiterations of the Mary Magdalene, the Virgin Mary, and the introduction of religion, you know, and how this, the introduction of religion, and how this also meant the introduction of colonial views, you know, like unfortunately, religion has been a colonial tool. So in the picture that you see right now, this is another layer of my photographic project, which is the inclusion of family archive. This also came about thanks to my mother, who you see in the picture. My mom knew that I was going through, while I was making this project, I was feeling very hypocritical because I was making a project about Bolivian women, but not feeling Bolivian at all. I was struggling to find myself connected to a culture that I had left for so many years. So actually my mom was cleaning my grandma's house and she found the family album, and she brought it to me, not for the photography project, but for myself. She said, maybe if you're not finding yourself, maybe look back, maybe look at the woman that came before you, and you will understand. And it blew my mind because I had not looked at a family album before as with a photography mindset. And suddenly I had such a big treasure in my hands because I don't like to be in front of the camera, but this work is very personal. So I thought it was a very good way of putting myself in the work and commenting on some things, because the image you see is on the left, my mom, and on the right, my grandma. I actually put these two pictures together because I thought it was the same little girl, but it's actually a whole generation after. And in both pictures, you see the acholita, a woman, a mestizo woman, looking after her like as a nanny. So this is a very small picture in the book, but I think it references this idea of classism that we have in Bolivia. You know, like, of course, mestizo woman is going to be looking after a little white girl. And if you look closely, she even looks like the cholita, even looks really young. So by bringing this, like, I am looking at it, I'm not shying away from where I come from and how these things are or develop in Bolivia, because that is also a very big problem of how women are depicted in Bolivia. They are depicted through a lens of, through a patriarchal lens, of course, but also through this lens of colonialism, which is basically an offshoot of white supremacy. Basically, the idea that everything white is better. And Bolivia being the country with the most diversity of ethnic and indigenous groups, like, it makes no sense that to this day we still hold up the value of like a more Eurocentric beauty, or that people feel superior because of their skin color, you know. So I wanted it I think the picture is very cute, but actually it is very politically charged.
Of course. But what is that thing that seems to be a paint?
That is a technique that I like to use, collage. It's the picture that you see in the back is actually cascades. So it's a natural element. Throughout the book, you will see that I am constantly putting into play nature, versus things that are man-made. Like there is a lot of saints, effigies, things, concrete things that are made, versus things that grow and are natural. So nature was, I know I'm not doing anything new by putting together nature and women, or like, I made metaphors with fruits and flowers, guys. So new, I know it's not new, but it was also my way of exploring, again, like this idea of, this is a good example, like something that is man-made, concrete, I love this image because it's so many things at the same time. Like it made me think, wow, women are we as a society love to depict women suffering, like these tears that she's crying are made of stone or plaster. You are deciding to make a portrait of someone, and this is Catholicism, when they are suffering. And this is not a real woman, but this is the idea that we get past as the woman that we should all look up to. But I super like this image because, as you can see, her makeup is very not traditional, let's say. Like it's very, they call it chola style, I think, in the United States. But it's very, or a friend said to me, I love your drag virgin because she looks more like a drag queen. So again, I think there's a bit of humor. I think that it is important. Humor is important when you're dealing with very complicated subject matter. But again, something that can be a little bit humorous can also make you think, like, why are we focused on this? And again, like when you turn the page, for example, I like the idea of a body, a real body, inhabiting the same page that a representation of a body is, like something natural versus something man-made. And then for example, this is completely documentary. I took this during Carnival, but I really love this dance. It's called, it's a dance the dance is called Morenada, but they have a special row of older women that are the ñaupas. So these are they all represent older women, older enslaved women. So again, it looks very beautiful, they look very regal, but the history behind the dance alludes to slavery, and old women, which is something that is very, to this day, women reach a certain age and somehow they become invisible. In media, this is changing, but they become invisible in media, they become invisible in many conversations. So I think it is very important in this diversity that I wanted to show. It was a diversity of bodies, a diversity of times, a diversity of the biggest range that I could get, And here I have this section that I call like living the cave. We start in the cave and we leave the cave. And when we leave this world of illusions, I think you find these women, this kind of women. This part of the book is like when the illusion falls, like this illusion brought about by religion, brought about by imperialism, colonialism, and you find these liberated women that are powerful and in contact with a more in contact with nature, with the real power. So also, yes.
You told me that this specific image comes from a dream.
Yes, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen often to me. But I had the dream of this image. It's very weird, but I remember thinking of a woman alone. She looked very strong. But I prefer to say powerful. Like she looked very powerful, like that she was very in control of who she was, and she was alone in a field. Actually, I don't even really take too many horizontal pictures, but I wanted her to look like in my dream, like very alone somehow in this space, but alone, but not, but happy.
Yeah,
and
it's
sure,
not abandoned. Like.
Exactly, not abandoned. And the bull that she's wearing I also imagined the bull, which is very funny. It's true because we have this. This is another prop that we have in one of our dances that symbolizes like the men that tame the bulls. So it's usually worn by a man, not a woman. But I thought, oh, this is in my dream, like this is a very powerful metaphor because I think I think all people have masculine and feminine energies inside them. But sometimes, women have not been allowed to express a more masculine side. So to me, this image that came in a dream is about this also, like recognizing this more masculine energy that we all have. I think I have a lot of masculine energy in a lot of things. It's just Marta Salinas, who is the woman in the picture, she was so perfect for it because she's a performer. She does theater. So going back to the nudity, I knew that if I asked a performer to do this picture, she would understand that first of all, as a performer, she's of course very in contact with her body and very like has a strength in it. But I also thought like she will understand, she will not be scandalized like most people in Bolivia, because she will understand that this nudity is about like this communion with nature, like this understanding that like we are one with nature, and it's not like a sexual thing, a pornographic thing.
No, but she seems really proud and confident and just with the 2 feet on the ground.
Exactly. And that is her. Like, again, she's an actress. You can see amazing. Like, she could understand and go into that character.
It's really beautiful also the fact that almost in all pictures you are like telling the names of...
because
it's really beautiful. It's something that doesn't happen so much.
I think to me, it was very important, not only what I'm talking about, but how I'm talking about it. If I am criticizing how women have been objects, I cannot treat the women that I'm photographing as a prop or as a name that I won't forget. Like, actually, the names of all the women that participated are at the end of the book. It was for me from the beginning. I didn't wanna what I set out to do was photograph women from my everyday life. I didn't want to photograph models or do castings. So every time that I did one of these pictures, it was a whole adventure. So of course I remember the names of these women, and some of them were friends, some of them became friends. I actually, sometimes we exchange memes. Marta lives in Buenos Aires now, but sometimes we exchange memes. When I was in Buenos Aires, I visited her. So again, it's not only like what you're telling, but how you are approaching the project. And to me, approaching the project was about making these women feel as, even if they are interpreting characters, because they are, for the pictures, they are interpreting characters that I thought about, that they contributed to. But
of course, they are also putting a lot of their self.
Of course. And they are... And again, she's not an ex-girl for me. She's Marta, And I think that is very important. Again, not only the images that you make, but like how you make the image, with what intention, how are you working? And yeah, like again, this part of the book is like the end of the falling of these mythologies that come with the Bible, for example. So this is my interpretation of Eve's apple, because Eve condemned all of humanity to sin. So you have a little butt of the bee. So it's like a little humor again, and like a little fuck you, patriarchy. Or have my woman, very important. This is Salome. She is an amazing woman. She's a mother. She's how do you call the women that help you give birth?
I can tell you in my language.
Well, she helps women do birth. Now they call them doulas, but I don't think it's a doula. Like she partera, we say in Spanish. Well, doesn't matter. She's an amazing cook. She's I met her because She works in the farm of my friend's grandparents, and we would just hang out a lot with her. And I thought, like, I think you can see it in this image. She's bossy as fuck, She's. And what I want to say about this image, because I think it's important, is, for example, this image I credit to Salome. I wanted her, like, I had a completely different setup for her. But she really liked this spot. And actually, Salome told me that she wanted to be in the project, but that she wanted to wear the clothes that she's wearing in the picture that she made herself. She's a cholita, but in Bolivia, cholitas from different regions have different clothing. She's from Chuquisaca, so her clothing is from there. Like, that's why her hat is so particular. She made these clothes herself, and I had to wait months for her to bring it to Cochabamba, because she was, I didn't want to pressure her, but I was like, okay, when are you bringing the clothes? Did you bring the clothes? So when we finally did the shoot, we were walking towards the place that I had thought would be the setup, and Salo said, take a picture here. No. I'm like, Salo, but let's walk over there. No, here.
Why?
I was like, okay. And part of what I do, to me, it's very important that I don't like to be in front of the camera. So to me, it's very important that when I'm taking photos of someone, they feel comfortable.
Of course.
So I actually took this picture to make her feel comfortable, not to, in my head, I was like, this is a very idea. My idea is better. But guess what? Her idea was so much better that actually, if you see her from her feet, there is like a light coming out. Mm-hmm. And this light is a light leak from the camera. But the amazing thing is that the light leak is only present in this image. So I even took it as a sign of the universe, if you want. This is the picture. And it makes so much sense to me that the picture that appears here is the one that Salome directed, because it's also a testament of who she is. Again, I think you can look at her and know that she's very bossy. But I love it because that's her in the end. And I put her next to my grandma in the book, because my grandma grew up in a different time, in a different society. So she probably, this was me being a little bit cheeky, because I don't know how happy she would have been that I put her together with a cholita, But it is my way of saying we are all women, we're all Bolivian. These schisms that come from a colonial mentality are really shitty. And the same flower that you saw before that was like fading here because she's so seductive is like standing. So there, like, I played with a little narrative in the book, again, to make sense of the images and to help with the freedom/chaos. And this part of the book is more the mystic part of the women, I think. This idea of, we have seen with the picture of Marta, the picture of Salo, very explicitly, if you want, strong, well-standing women. But to me, powerful women are not only, women that stand on their 2 feet. The vulnerability, to me, is a strength, is power. It is very powerful if you allow yourself to feel, if you allow yourself to cry, if you admit sometimes that you are very fragile. That is super powerful to me. So at one point, I remember a friend suggested, like, maybe in the sequence, I could have, like, from colonial to empowered women. And I said no, because that's a narrative also that I don't like women during the colonies and stuff, they were also powerful, and I wanted it to always be a mix of like more vulnerability and more don't fuck with me, and both of them to be there. And again, there's always, you will see that I do this frequently, like I always put women next to depictions of women by the church. And this part is, and I also make some metaphors through some images to talk about subjects that I think it's better to talk through metaphors, like violence. Violence against women, of course, is, when I was living in Europe, I used to say, you are fighting for your women to have more rights. We are fighting for our women not to get killed. Because unfortunately in Latin America, the rates of violence against women are so high. So societies are still very, we have machismo. I know they have it elsewhere. So, like these metaphors, like a window, this is an inverted image. I actually inverted the image on, it's a window. So everything that you see that is black is actually white in the original image. But again, this is a metaphor. Like if you look out, the outside is quite bleak, quite seems like no escape. But I think I gravitate between how do you say? I think I gravitate between hope and being very realistic about how complicated everything is. So here I have my mom, again, archival materials. This is the original picture is my mom in her, when she was doing her first communion. And when she saw it, she said, you turned me into a demon. Mm-hmm. And I love it. so my mom was understanding where I was going. But again, just by inverting the image, I call this image pray as a word, as a word play with the word. Pray is to pray, the act of speaking with God. But I write it as pray with an E, the pray. If someone is hunting, you have the prey. Because it's a comment on how I think that things that Catholicism taught me about womanhood, like purity, always being good, putting your head down, not speaking back, we become prey to this kind of thinking that actually makes women submissive, which sometimes doesn't allow us to be as free or chaotic as we want. So again, there are small gestures, but through the gestures, I'm trying to retell the story that is in the original image, or to comment on the story that we're seeing. And then, that is my mom in the picture. It's her hand. I criticize these common spaces, the quinceañera. I love that we love these big celebrations and wearing these fancy dresses, but actually it's very problematic because quinceañera was basically showing a woman to society and saying she's ready to marry, she's ready to have a partner. My indication, I actually showed this picture, which is from my family archive. I thought it was so funny. You will see it later in a wedding picture as well. Back then, they didn't take hundreds of pictures. They took one or two of a special day. So I loved that she's in her quinceañera and she looks miserable. She looks like she doesn't want to be there. So I actually showed this image to Sofia in the picture and told her reproduce this. You are also very angry. And I think, and it's interesting to me, how the archive gave me ideas for the images that I made. The images that I made gave me ideas of how to intervene the archive, because here my intervention was I cut the rest of the image just to focus on her face, because that was the gesture was what attracted me to it. And then again, going back to my biggest metaphor, Mary Magdalene, the Virgin Mary and a Mary Magdalene, and doing this exercise of thinking, what does nowadays, what does a Mary Magdalene look like? And to me, the very easy answer was a trans woman. Because Mary Magdalene was a whore, supposedly, so she was a pariah of society. Before Jesus came, people treated her so badly, and they didn't give her space. And I think that that's exactly what happens with trans people. Actually, another person told me, do you really want to keep this picture because it's, again, very political. And I said, of course, because this is my stance. Like, I believe trans women are women. And I thought it was fantastic. Again, going back to my mother and how important this work is for me. Chelsea, the woman that you see in the picture, is the first trans person that my mom met. And
it was during the shooting.
And it was absolutely fabulous because I saw in my mom, as in anyone, like people are a little bit scared or overwhelmed by something new. And my mom, she's so sweet. She was like nervous that she wasn't going to say, that she was going to say something problematic. But also, I don't know, like maybe I think she might felt that she could be uncomfortable. But actually on that day, Chelsea came late, very late to the shoot, which was a blessing because the shadow that makes the photograph, I think, wasn't part of the plan. Like actually, I wanted to take the picture when the background was completely lit, but because she was so late to the shoot, this happened. And she was so late to the shoot because her sister didn't have. She was taking care of her two nieces, and she didn't have where to leave them for the shoot, so she ended up coming with them. And my mom, I think that was such a bond with my mom because, you know, this thing, again, a trans person is a person. But maybe you are scared because you don't know trans. So my mom saw that Chelsea saw the point of connection, which is Chelsea's very maternal, just like her. And then they became friends. They had like all this chat. We sat together, the four of us, her two nieces, Chelsea, me and my mom, to have food afterwards. And my mom was so happy to meet Chelsea. So to me, again, the book is so much about the journey that I made. Like so many of these stories, whenever I see the pictures, like I remember all these stories about making them. And I like to do this thing, provocative thing, at least in my head, which is like, after the trans woman, of course I'm going to have like an old traditional Catholic school, you know, for all girls. But to me, saying like, this is a girl and this is a girl.
And okay, it's all for this part of the episode because it's going to be a long episode, so we split in two.
That sounds perfect. I think we knew before starting that this was a big possibility because I'm quite a talkative person.
But it's beautiful.
So please tune in to the second part of this podcast where we will continue to look at MADRE.
Perfect. Ciao.
Ciao.